Kalkalo Shavuotov, we are starting Mishna Yomi, a new Masechet and a new Seder. This is Seder Nezikin, which talks about damages, and we are starting Masechet Bava Kamma. Perek Aleph, chapter 1. This is Mishnah, Aleph and Bet, number 1 and number 2. There are going to be Arba Avot Nezikin, 4 primary damagers, which means 4 categories of damagers. Number 1 is going to be Hashor. The shor is basically, it's going to be an ox, whether it's going to damage when it walks with its feet, or we're going to speak about other ways as well. And then we're going to speak about the bor. The bor is a pit, so people or animals could fall inside of there. This is going to include any types of obstacles also in the path. Hamaveh, number 3, is going to be the tooth of an animal. It's actually going to be a machloket in the Gemara. What is it? But for now, we're explaining that it's going to be the tooth of an animal, which is an uncovered thing, and this includes damages that he does while, whether it's eating or for pleasure. However, number 4 is not the fire, which basically burns property or causes types of damages. So now that we have the 4 different types of damagers, which is basically a shor, bor, mave, v'hever, the Mishnah is going to explain lo hare ashor kare mave, velo hare mave kare ashor. So says the Mishnah, the ox is not like the tooth, and the tooth is not like the ox, which means that each one has differences. So the difference is that when an animal often walks on another person's property, it does not often eat another person's property, right? Only when he's hungry, basically. And therefore the Torah is saying that the owner must pay for damage done through the walking, which is a common behavior. So we might have thought that he doesn't have to pay for the shen, which is the eating, because it's not really that usual. So therefore, that's what we needed it to bring it down. And the same thing with a tooth, which is basically to do with the concept of eating, is not like the way that why. The difference is that when an owner of the animal benefits when it eats, but it doesn't benefit when it damages when it's walking. Meaning, if right now it comes and it eats, so therefore I just benefited, and now that I don't have to give it to eat something else. But when it's just walking the property and damaging, I'm not gaining anything. Now, there's a big difference between the ox, because the ox, whether it's talking about the regular shen, which is basically damaging by the foot or damaging by eating with the ox, it has a life to it. The fire, which was the last one over there, has no life to it. So it's completely different. We would have thought to say, listen, you don't have to pay for it if your fire came and started damaging. And nothing of this is compared to the pit, because the pit does not move. Meaning the ox, whether it's going and it's traveling and it's damaging with its feet or eating, or it's the fire, they are moving objects. They are moving, right? Or an inanimate object moving for the fire, but it's moving, it's on the go. Here, the pit does not move, and therefore I still need all 4 of them in order to make sure that what is the common denominator between all of these 4? That they have a tendency to damage, and it's responsible for us to watch over them. And when it does do damage, the damager has to pay the damages with the best of his land, meaning the mamash, the best parts of what he has, the best properties. So if he's got properties in different areas, you would go for the best properties in the areas. Okay, that was Mishnah Aleph. Mishnah Bet says, Kol shechavti bishmirato, hechsharti et nisko. Whatever I'm required to guard from doing damage, so therefore I cause the damage. So therefore, if I fail to watch over it, I have to pay for it. Even if I'm going to be machshid part of the damage. So I'm obligated in all the damage, meaning even if what I did was not enough for it to damage completely, the fact that I facilitated that it's able to damage, I'm already obligated now in the full damage. Right? What about property? When am I going to be obligated to pay for the damage? It's property that are not subject to milah, which means private property and not property which belongs to the Bet HaMikdash, or nechasim shel bnei brit, or property that belongs to a bnei brit, which is members of the covenant. Nechasim miyuchadim, when he says you're obligated to pay for properties which are assigned from the beginning damage until the end, uvechol makom, and you're obligated to pay at any time, anywhere. except for except for in a place where it belongs only to the damager, to the mazik. Because, for example, if I damage somebody, but it's in my property, what are they doing in my property? So I'm not obligated to pay them. Why? He has no right to be there. Or if it's Reshut Nizak V'Mazik, if it's a place that belongs to both the damager and the damaged property, right? The damagee, basically, the damaged party. The Mishnah is teaching two laws, right? Number one, that's what we're talking about before. To most categories, if that makes no difference where the damage happened, the mazik must pay regardless of whether it's a place where it was a public or private person or had no owner. But the only exception is if it's in the mazik's own property. So again, that's what we mentioned beforehand, because what's he doing in my property? The categories of regel and shen arsal are different from all others. In their case, the Torah says, which means that there's going to be in somebody else's field. And therefore it tells us that only if the damage happened in the property of the nizak, if it happened in any other place like a public property or a property belonging to a third person or for the mazik and the nizak, so they're going to be exempt as well. So these are two different halachot which we are learning from the two different rules. And it says when something does damage, again the damager always will pay for the best of his lands.